Have you ever wondered why big institutional players are only interested in Bitcoin when there's plenty of other great cryptocurrencies out there with potentially more upside? Today, we're going to see why that is and why Bitcoin will be exploding in the coming years. Hey, what's up, everyone? My name is Cody Buffington. Make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you know when we drop our latest content. Follow us on Twitter, AltcoinBuzzIO, and as always, this is not financial advice, and we wish you the best of luck in your crypto ventures. So why only Bitcoin? Michael Saylor's MicroStrategy has again accumulated Bitcoin. This time they've acquired 12,800 Bitcoin since Q1 this year for $361.4 million or $28,233 per Bitcoin. They now own 152,800 Bitcoin at an average price of $29,672. MicroStrategy is also planning to sell $750 million worth of their stock to buy more Bitcoin. They bought Bitcoin at the lows, the highs, and everywhere in between. At the time of filming this, they currently go between being in profit or loss by the day. MicroStrategy has been actively purchasing Bitcoin with the use of cash and stock financing during the crypto bear market, sometimes irrespective of its current price. MicroStrategy's founder, Michael Saylor, has been a vocal advocate for Bitcoin as a hedge against inflation and a dependable store of value. These recent purchases are an indication of their confidence in Bitcoin's long-term potential, and Saylor recently was interviewed on his thoughts on Bitcoin right now, saying this.
So in terms of this rally we have seen in Bitcoin, what do you attribute it to, especially on a day where we've seen other folks who are invested in the asset class say soft landing is really what the rally is contingent upon?
Well, really, there's a growing consensus that Bitcoin is a unique and valuable international asset, and that's being endorsed by politicians. It's being endorsed by regulators. It's being endorsed by investors. You're hearing money managers like Larry Fink say this. And that has created a change in sentiment. You know, the odds of spot ETF being approved were 1% 6 months ago. Then they went to 50%, and this morning they were 65%, according to Bloomberg analysts. So that's really driving the near-term sentiment. But plus the fact that there's so much chaos in the crypto industry, Bitcoin is emerging as the safe haven institutional asset if you want to play this space without trying to parse through the politics, the legal, and the regulatory complexity.
Can the case be made that Bitcoin is a commodity and doesn't require the same regulation as everything else, or is it coming?
There's universal consensus generally everywhere in the world across all parties that Bitcoin is a decentralized global asset that has value. It is without an issuer, and it is a digital commodity. In fact, it is the gold standard of digital commodities. So you study Bitcoin to figure out how to create a digital commodity. There's also pretty general uncertainty and conflict and controversy surrounding the role of crypto exchanges, stable coins, digital securities, tokens, and DeFi. I don't think that uncertainty is going to be resolved anytime in the next 2 years. And the chair of the CFTC is correct in saying we do need a political solution coming from Congress. It's pretty clear that there's not going to be a quick solution coming directly from the regulators or organically from the industry. So we're waiting for political leadership to resolve that ambiguity. Meanwhile, Bitcoin is the one unambiguous thing, right? It is the most certain thing in a very promising, innovative economy, but full of regulatory uncertainty. And so if you want to participate in the space, the way to do it is with Bitcoin.
So as Saylor says, the reason Bitcoin is the safe haven asset in the space is because of the regulatory clarity around it, which sees it as a commodity and not a security. Therefore, it's the safest crypto asset and one that institutions can get behind as more and more news comes out each day about issues with crypto exchanges, DeFi hacks, stablecoin depeggings, rug pulls, and all kinds of crypto scams. Saylor goes on to say that it'll be years before there's full clarity in the space for altcoins, and Bitcoin is the one asset that's a certain thing, and if you want to participate in the space, you do that through Bitcoin. He also mentioned how the chances of a spot Bitcoin ETF are now at 65%, up from 50% last week, which could bring much greater global adoption when every asset manager and retirement account is now able to invest in Bitcoin. Larry Fink, CEO of the world's largest asset management firm BlackRock, has offered his favorable views on Bitcoin in a recent interview.
You look at all of your track records when it comes to iShares and approvals. How do these things work out? How long does it take? And what do you think odds are of any of your ETFs that you float getting accepted?
Well, we try to do what's right for the long-term investor, and I think we have a good track record working with our regulators and trying to making sure we're thinking about all the issues around any filing. And so I can't get into the specifics of this filing, but I think the chart speaks quite well. We work really closely with our regulators, and we want to hear from the regulators what are their issues and how can we fix those issues around that. So we hope that, like in the past, we could be working with our regulators and get the filing approved one day. And I have no idea what that one day will be, but and so we'll see how that all plays out. Specifically on Bitcoin, as I've said in the past, we're a believer in digitization of products. ETFs was a big revolution for the mutual fund industry, and it's really taking over the mutual fund industry. And we do believe that if we can create more tokenization of assets and securities, and that's what Bitcoin is, it could revolutionize again finance. And so we look at this as an opportunity to move one step further in terms of providing investors fractions of shares, fractions of this, democratizing the cost of investing. And also, I do believe the role of crypto is digitizing gold in many ways. Instead of investing in gold as a hedge against inflation, a hedge against the onerous problems of any one country, or the devaluation of your currency, whatever country you're in. Let's be clear, Bitcoin is an international asset.
Fink referred to the function of Bitcoin as primarily digitizing gold, highlighting the transformative potential of the digital asset. He also stressed the importance of U.S. regulators giving due consideration to a Bitcoin ETF, as it could democratize the financial landscape by providing broad-based access to the asset. Larry Fink's statements reflected growing acceptance of Bitcoin among mainstream financial institutions. This shift in perception is likely to fuel further development and acceptance of cryptocurrency-based financial products, such as ETFs. With BlackRock's amazing track record of getting ETFs approved at 575 to 1, and with their reputation, it gave investors a much bigger confidence boost that this was possible, and with their stamp of approval that Bitcoin's not going anywhere. Galaxy Digital founder Mike Novogratz says the biggest thing to happen to crypto this year was Larry Fink.
I think the most important thing that happened this year in Bitcoin is Larry Fink. He got orange pilled, as we say. Orange pill is when you take a non-believer and you make him a believer in Bitcoin. And Larry was a non-believer, and now he says, hey, this is going to be a global currency. People around the world all trust it. Well, BlackRock is the biggest asset
BlackRock
manager.
is now doing an ETF, or trying to do an ETF for Bitcoin.
Yes.
Is that a big change in the industry?
Yes. For Larry in particular, right, who's the CEO of this iconic company, to say, I believe in this, right? That's kind of huge, because again, like when Elizabeth Warren says, well, I don't believe in Bitcoin, I'm like, well, Elizabeth, Larry Fink does, Stan Druckenmiller does, Jeff Yost does, the richest person in your state, Abby Johnson does. Like, just because you do doesn't mean it's not real, right? Value comes from when people believe there's value. And now we have this preponderance of evidence, 180 million people around the world that, without a gun to their head, take their hard-earned savings and store it in this community of people that run this technology, called Bitcoin.
I personally believe that this next bull cycle will be the cycle of adoption that takes Bitcoin into the extreme limelight, as BlackRock and all other asset managers accept it and begin to push it. In this cycle, I believe we'll see more countries like El Salvador accept Bitcoin as legal tender, meaning it has to be accepted as payment, and we'll begin to see Bitcoin getting used more and more for things other than just the odd coffee shop which accepts it. If the BlackRock ETF gets accepted, along with the other institutional spot Bitcoin ETFs, I also believe we won't see the massive drawdowns Bitcoin has had in previous bear markets. I could be wrong, as this is just an opinion of mine, but I don't imagine BlackRock would put their name on a product that has an over 80% price drawdown just a couple years after it was created. I think there will be corrections, obviously, but possibly just 60%. And as Bitcoin goes high into the multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars in price, there will be less price volatility, and it can begin to act as a stable asset that people can use for a proper store of value or even money. So to conclude, Bitcoin has been the only crypto institutions have adopted so far, as it's the one safe haven asset free from regulatory scrutiny. It's decentralized and an asset with a big enough market cap that large players can put tens of billions of dollars into safely, which is what they plan to do.